And Saudi Arabia announcing that they will be restoring diplomatic relations after 7 years of estrangement and tensions. You know, the deal was negotiated, though, with the help of the guy in the middle, China. And it's seen as a sign of Beijing's growing foothold and influence in the Middle East, a region where the U.S. has long been considered the dominant power broker. So what does this mean for us? Gordon Chang, senior fellow at the Gaystown Institute and author of The Coming Collapse of China, joins us. Gordon, does this bolster Beijing at our expense?
Certainly does, Eric, because really China faced a dilemma. It had two friends, Saudi Arabia and Iran, and both of them were at each other's throats. What Beijing has done, at least temporarily, has brought the two together and eliminated that dilemma for Beijing. But we got to remember that Beijing right now is flooding the region with weapons through Iran. Those weapons are going to be used against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I think that this relationship is going to again fall apart because Iran just can't help itself.
Well, that part of the deal, Iran says they're not going to attack Saudi Arabia anymore. I mean, they sent those missiles attacking the oil production facilities. You think that's not going to last?
Previous agreements where Iran has made similar promises have not lasted. But at the moment, China has become the dominant foreign power in the region, replacing the United States. And we got to remember that President Trump had the most successful Middle East policy for an American administration going back to at least FDR. And Biden so far has had the worst. I mean, with the Abraham Accords, President Trump brought historic peace to the region. But clearly right now we are seeing the United States being chased out. And we're being chased out because of policies which are totally misguided.
Speaking of former President Trump, former Vice President Mike Pence was speaking on this very issue this morning in Washington. He addressed a Iranian opposition group gathering that support the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the largest resistance group. And he talked about some of these dangers of what the administration is now doing. Let's listen to part of what the vice president said.
We imposed crippling new sanctions on Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. We launched a campaign of maximum pressure, punishing the regime for its belligerent behavior and assault on its own citizens. We vigorously enforced sanctions to bring Iran's exports of oil to nearly zero.
Is this agreement between Iran and China and Saudi Arabia just the opposite of that?
Yes, it certainly is. And also another significant agreement was Iran and China with that 25-year strategic partnership. The Chinese said they're going to invest $400 billion into Iran, although they may not put that much money into it. But it really signaled China's ability to affect outcomes in the Middle East. And right now, we're just in disarray. We have an administration that was taken by surprise by this agreement announced among Saudi Arabia, Iran, and China. And we really don't know what to do. And countries in the region, they want the United States to be strong, especially in the Persian Gulf. But right now, they have no choice but to come to accommodation with both Iran and China. And so we are, although we are a favored partner, people don't think that we can provide the security that we have in decades past.
You know, the National Security Advisor, John Kirby, has said that we are not stepping back from the Middle East. The Biden administration is not, he says. But look, you just pointed out, trade between China right into Iran. You know where that money is going to go to? It's going to go buy weapons and provide weapons to Vladimir Putin that he could use against Ukraine. Let's listen to former Vice President Pence talk about how all this helps Iran.
They even waived sanctions imposed by the Trump-Pence administration related to the Iranian regime's nuclear activities. And the Biden administration has even worked closely with Russia to revive talks for a new Iran nuclear deal, even as Vladimir Putin and the Russian army engage in their unprovoked and unconscionable invasion of Ukraine.
So, Gordon, do you think this agreement has ramifications far beyond just Saudi Arabia and China, but China and Iran?
It can, Eric, if the Iranians actually respect it. But as I mentioned, I don't think that they can. And with some competent Biden administration initiatives, we can regain some of what we lost. The problem here, though, is as Saudi Arabia gets closer to China, it undermines the dollar because eventually the Saudis will accept renminbi for oil. They're not doing that yet, but clearly that's what China wants them to do. That undermines the ability of the United States to provide the reserve currency for the world. These are just things which are critical to American security, and the Biden team is letting China attack them one by one.
And China relying on Saudi Arabia for oil, not a good partnership. Ramifications and warnings for us. Gordon Chang. Gordon, always good to see you. Thank you for weighing in.